It's good to see a lot of faces. Welcome the new ones. I know we had thought about trying to split this into 2 Zooms because sometimes like the team philosophy and the who I am and everything is a review for some of our returning families. I think last year was kind of weird in that I don't really know how to qualify who's new. We had some people join us part of the way through the year and also for the spring or for the summer. So, I felt like it was important to kind of align on all of the things that our team is about, especially as we head into a new year, and just kind of level set where we're at in terms of philosophy, where we've been, where I want to go, because I am so committed to our team mission and kind of the way we run things here that I want to make sure that everybody's aligned. And I know COVID, obviously had our team grow a lot, partly because we were one of the only available pools. But what I want to make sure this year is that the people who are here because they truly believe in what we're doing at the NAC and they want to be here for our program, not just because we're a pool and old team shut down and things like that. So I'll come back to this idea, but I do have this, kind of mission statement over here, commitment to foundational excellence and continuous improvement. We'll come back to that several times throughout the night. I'm hoping to get through this in about 45 minutes, including all the policies, and then leave time for questions. It won't be as in-depth as either the season info session last year or everything that's in the handbook, but you do have your handbook. So I'm going to cover high-level policies, kind of what we're thinking about, what's really changed, and go from there. So today's agenda, I'll go through a little bit of team leadership, who's on the phone, who's going to run the team, a little bit about what we specifically offer and what our team philosophy entails. Go through a little bit of team history because I think, it's important to kind of understand where we came from, and then talk about our team goals for the year, which are really this emphasis on well-rounded swimmers. Go over the practice schedule, the groups, what they mean, since I have changed the names for like the 3rd time in 3 seasons. Talk about a high-level policy review, and then really just kind of firm up the key dates for everything that we, all the key dates that you need to hit to make sure that we have your registration form, you're not giving up your spot, you're in time, when we start, those sorts of things. So, here's our leadership. So I am, for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Kristen Lavery. I'm the head coach. I have been here at the NAC since fall 2019. I've been coaching off and on since 2006. If I add up all of the months that I did it, I'm probably at about 10 years of full coaching experience. Before the NAC, I spent 4 years at the Hunterdon County Y. And there I ran like the top group. My bio's on the website, but I ran the top age group swimmers, and then I ran the senior groups. And we had a lot of success there. We rewrote the record boards more or less, and we were able to score some points at some prominent meets and increase the number of qualifiers and those sorts of things. I am, if we're going to talk about credentials, the American Swim Coaches Association gives certain levels of credentials. I am a level 5 education, which is the highest that they will accredit. So that's like a terminal, kind of like the PhD of swimming. And I am a level 3 experience. And just to describe a little bit about what that means, within ASCA, about 50% of credential coaches are level 1. That's basically what you need to do to get on deck at a USA meet. There's another 30-ish, 25-30% that are level 2, which is just you've been coaching for at least 6 months, you've taken a class on stroke technique. And for levels 3, 4, and 5, you need additional educational components, and you need some level of swimmer achievement. And so in order to get the level 3, I needed to place 10 kids in the top 10 nationally within the YMCA. And I did that out of a program of about 120 kids. So level 3 for someone my age is decent. So I just want you to know that that's in I feel like we're in capable hands. I don't like to brag about myself too much, but that's kind of where we're informing things from. So I am credentialed. I am, pretty qualified. As far as my swim experience, I did swim for 12 years. I will say I was a good swimmer. I wouldn't qualify myself as a great swimmer. I did make high school district, states, and Midway nationals, but I was not like a superstar by any means. I actually had a conversation with someone this weekend and said that I think I'm a better coach because I have a little bit of unfinished business with the sport. And I feel like I didn't totally reach my potential there. So I'm your head coach. And then we have our swim team administrator, Charlene, and she has been with the team as long as I have. She was actually at the NAC a little before me. Very experienced swim parent, 15 plus years of swim parent experience. One kid who finished D3 NCAA, and another who is in her senior year right now, swimming for Eastern Express. And a lot of you know Charlene. She's been on a bunch of area boards, kind of like a superstar swim parent turned team administrator. So we're definitely really happy to have her expertise. And she is on the phone from the car, but just so you know kind of who's on the phone. We also have Coach Ryan. He'll be back. Coach Ryan swam, played water polo. He obviously coached with us last year. He was kind of my number 2 in command in terms of running all the groups. And the kids really like him. He's really engaging, and really knows his stuff, really has a good eye for individual feedback. Coach Kirk is on the phone. Coach Dad, he is my father. Swim team is a family affair for us. We spend a lot of time on technique. These are what we have discussions about. Dad and I have been interested in swim technique since I was a swimmer and used to spend a lot of afternoons watching frame by frame video analysis of meets that were on TV and looking at books and those sorts of things. Coach Melissa, who many of you might know from swim lessons, and last year will be back as our lead developmental coach. I'm really, really excited for her to continue to grow in that role and lead the developmental teams. Since she was kind of already sending me a bunch of kids from lessons to swim team, we made the developmental groups last year. We figured she was the right person to put in charge of that. Coach Savannah, who many of you may have seen in the spring, will be back a little bit on a part-time basis. But she'll be assisting with all the groups again. She did a great job in the spring. Former high school swimmer, former synchronized swimmer, lots of sports, studying health and exercise science and things like that. So definitely a good asset. We have our aquatics director, Jen, on the phone. So Jen's my boss. You can always go to her with problems about me. But we're also looking to hopefully bring on 2, maybe 3 more coaches, including one I'm like super, super excited about. And I really hope she joins, who's pretty well known in the area. I won't give that name out yet, but I'm hoping that we can bring her in actually to lead our Age Group 1 team. So as far as the breakdown goes here, Melissa will be the lead for the developmental groups. I'm bringing in a new coach to run Age Group 1, and I'll talk about kind of why that is. Ryan, Savannah, any additional assistant coaches that we get will float between the groups. Dad and I kind of are going to come in Age Group 2 and up. And the reason I want to do it that way is I am a part-time coach. I work a 9-to-5 job. I work about 45 hours before I step foot on a pool deck or I answer an email. So I want to make sure that we're giving each group the right level of attention, and I'm only doing kind of what we can do well. And Dad and I, our skill set's definitely a little bit more with the older ones. And there are people who I think can bring additional strengths to that a little bit more beginner group. So just so you have an idea of how that'll work, we'll firm this up and finalize it before the season starts, but you can definitely count on this group returning, and we're working on a couple more. So in terms of what we offer, and I'm going to go back to that continuous improvement really quickly. So we're going to have a couple of history slides, but when Charlene and I started at the NAC, we were like, all right, we're going to start a team. We know we're in a heavily saturated swim area. We're going to do things a little bit differently here. Kind of knowing that there were some competitive teams down the road, we didn't really, we knew we couldn't necessarily compete with them, but also we didn't really want to try to be. We wanted to be our own thing. And that's really what drew me to the NAC, was the opportunity to build our own program. So we looked at it, and that first year, for those of you guys who are returning from that, was definitely some raw talent in there, but everybody was very, very raw. We actually took a lot of kids who had tried out for another team and didn't make it. And we kind of said, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to take whoever wants to swim and we're going to really teach them the right way to swim. And we're going to really build the foundation there. We're going to have this focus on quality over quantity. And we're going to have this additional focus of getting better every time we swim. And this idea of continuous improvement is kind of like, it doesn't really matter where you start because everybody has to start somewhere. But as long as you're moving in the right direction, you're succeeding. And the philosophy applies whether you're a beginner or whether you're someone who's achieved a lot of goals. And I don't think they're on the line, but I can pick on him. But like we had a kid who made finals at JOs last week. And Ryan and I, and we're very proud of him, he did a great job, gave him a laundry list of things that we wanted to fix in his race. Because even at that level, there's a lot of things we can improve. So it's always, all right, what can we do better? And that's the focus, regardless of where you're starting. I have that philosophy for our swimmers. I also have it for our coaches. We are always trying to learn and stay ahead of what's going on technically. I will tell you, Dad and I have lots of conversations. I take several ASCA classes every year. If I'm not able to make it to clinics, I try to watch recordings from some of the top people in the field. We are always experimenting with new things, kind of trying to see what works. And a lot of things have worked out really, really well. And I think it's because we never get complacent. We're always trying to figure out a better way to do things. And so I think, if I'm going to preach that to the swimmers, I have to do that from the top down. And I have tons of resources. I share them with all my assistants. We do training every year. So we're always trying to get better, and we're not complacent. And we are very, very heavily technique based. We've historically had a low swimmer to coach ratio. We are expanding a little bit this year. I won't expand beyond a certain number because I want to make sure that we can still give everyone the attention they deserve. I will say, regardless of swimmer to coach ratio, I do think we have a high degree of feedback on our team. Our coaches are very engaged. Part of the training we do with everybody is, look, at the end of a repeat, you have to give feedback to someone. You don't have to get to every swimmer every repeat, but we should be giving them something to focus on. This isn't a situation where you write a setup on the board and the coach kind of does their thing. We're very highly engaged in that practice because if the kids are there putting in effort, we should use our time wisely and really try to make them better. Along the same lines of teaching the right technique, we are much more effective coaches if we can explain the why, or we can get kids to feel why we're doing something a certain way. So there's actually a lot of teaching that goes on. And this is why a lot of the group descriptions have an element of practice maturity in the qualifications. We really want to make sure that everyone is intellectually kind of understanding what we're doing. And obviously that differs depending on the level. But when they're able to do that, we find that they can self-correct a lot better and they're more aware of what they're doing. So the feedback we give them is more meaningful. And because age group swimming is so crazy, like kids are growing, their proportions are different than they were last week. They, might not be strong enough to do that. They might not have gotten enough sleep. I mean, these are kids. There's sometimes days where it's not going to click, and then there's a day where it does. And I think we saw last year, we had kids in March who left us and stopped swimming for COVID in 2020, who might not have been legal in breaststroke or butterfly, but maybe they intellectually understood what they were supposed to do. And when they came back in September, they were able to do those things despite not having been in a pool for several months. So we'll do some weird stuff. If you're looking down from the upstairs and we're doing something weird, know that we have a reason behind it. We're always happy to talk to you about what we're doing. If you think it's a little strange, and sometimes it is, but a lot of times it works really well. So we do that. We also have a focus on doing things right versus doing things fast. Swimming's technique limited, so you are going to limit your progress if you don't learn the right way to swim. And so, I do 25s of drill with my older kids. I mean, I had a whole group this summer and I don't think we did one aerobic set. We just did technique. And that was really so that we could cement the neural pathways and make sure that we're building good habits and we're building off of them before we ever try to swim long distance or hard distance. Even my threshold sets with our top groups, you know, a lot of times I'm like, all right, the point of the set is to work on your third 50 of your 200 free, or we're going to descend the back half, or I want you to build tempo and then hold it and add your legs in. Like, there's a reason behind what we're doing. We're never doing a lap that doesn't have a reason, because we're going to maximize the time that we have. In terms of kind of what we offer to our swimmers, I do have a whole child focus in terms of, like, I think I have this bullet later, but if swimming is the only thing that your kid does, please have them do something else in addition to swimming. I want them to be a little bit more well-rounded. So I'm very happy to work with you on other sports and activities, provided that you try to meet our minimum requirements for practice, and we'll talk about the attendance, and that when kids are there, they are there to swim, they're there to learn, they're engaged in it. In terms of being more well-rounded, I have seen it backfire enough times where all a kid does is swim, and at 15, that kid blows their shoulder out, and then they say, what do I do with my life? This is the only thing I know how to do. Please put your kid in something else besides swimming, whether that's another sport, whether it's playing an instrument, whatever they want to do, have them do something else. We want multidimensional kids. We also want to make it fun, and that's going to differ from kid to kid. I know historically the NAC team wasn't super competitive. We do have kids who are very competitive. We have kids who are not as competitive, and it's kind of this, as competitive as you want to make it, understanding that we are a swim team, we're not swim lessons, so you do have to go to meets if you're not on our developmental team. If you are there to, different kids get different things out of it. Swimming fast is really fun, right? So for some kids, that's what's fun about swimming, making goals and reaching them. On the subject of goals, sometimes it's really fun for a kid to master a new skill. I mean, I had a girl this summer who could dive off the side beautifully and was scared to go off the block. And when she finally did it, she was so happy that she did it. And that was fun for her. It might not have been, a game playing in the pool, but she got something out of that. Some kids are here to hang out with their friends, get some exercise. That's great. We're happy to have you, as provided that you're still supporting everyone else's goal of whatever fun is for them. So if you're there to hang out with your friends, don't distract your friends if they're trying to learn. We also have dryland training. We give that as young as age group 1. I know dryland last year. For families who don't know, dryland is swim practice that's not in the pool. So it's still part of your practice, and it's important, and it should be weighted the same as pool time. But it's outside of the pool. So we're lucky that we have the Parisi Speed School in-house at the NAC. They are trained in swim-specific dryland. I know last year we didn't do a ton of it, mainly because of COVID and just different protocols, and we tried to do it virtually. It wasn't the greatest. I'm very excited to bring it back this year. So definitely looking forward to that. And most teams do not do dryland at all ages. I think it's important, again, that we're well-rounded and that swimmers know how to use their body. They have body awareness. They're relatively coordinated, even on land. So that's part of the reason we do that. And we are one of the few teams in the area that works with this company called One Swim, or Swimmer's Best. It's similar to like a Tier, a Finis, or a Speedo, but they're a family-run business, and all of their products really try to get you to feel the correct way to do something. So I find that they're self-correcting. And we really like to use their stuff because they come out with innovative things, and we like to be at the front of that. So I always like to plug that because they're just kind of gaining traction, and we're a little bit ahead of the curve on that one. So our philosophy, and these are in your information packets that went out. Again, continuous improvement. I've already said that 15 times today, but we're striving for progress, not perfection, as long as you're trying to get a little better every time and you're supporting your teammates and doing the same thing. And along those lines, we're building good technical habits at the foundational level. You will hear me talk about no garbage yardage all the time. If you just want your kid to swim a bunch of laps and get a bunch of exercise, and be tired when our kids can get tired too, but be tired when they come home, we might not be the team for you, because we're really going to focus on slowing things down and trying to teach the right way. But kind of what happens is if you start out in one of those programs where it's a heavily garbage yardage, maybe you've got some inexperienced coaches and they're just running the kids up and down the pool. What happens is if you don't learn the right way to swim, then all you do is practice the wrong way over and over and over again. And then by the time you want to learn the right way, it's so hard to break those habits. And there's actually some teams where I struggle with some of the kids because I know their technical flaws are so ingrained that we have to work extra hard to get them out. So it's always good to start that the right way at the beginning, which is why it's so important that I've kind of delegated those groups to really experienced people. We also have this idea of resiliency and respect for the process. In terms of like when I say the process, again, we're building the right technique. The kids who are fast at 10 or 12 are not always fast at 16. I very much hope that all of your kids swim a lot faster for someone who is not me, whether that's their high school coach, whether that's their college coach. I would rather set them up for success later on. And that doesn't mean we can't swim fast along the way at various points, but we kind of have to keep the bigger picture in mind. So don't panic if your kid is not the best when they're 8, 9, 10, 14, it doesn't even matter. As long as we keep the eye on getting a little better every day, we can do really great things. Struggle is part of the process. We do have to fail sometimes to learn. You have to fail a lot to get better. A lot of my sets are set up for kids to not make that interval sometimes. Kids are going to get DQ'd. Getting DQ'd in something is one of the quickest ways to learn not to do it again. So, we want to understand that struggle happens, and then have this degree of resiliency. Like, cool, it's great if you get a best time. But if you get DQ'd, you learn from it. Like either you do something great or you learn from it. So at the end of the day, that's really why kids are in swimming, right? I'm not saying that no parent or no kid that you guys have is going to go to the Olympics, but we're really in this for the life lessons, the process, to have some success, whether that's in high school, whether that's in college, and really just set ourselves up for the future, whatever that may be. So team culture, this is a little bit kind of building off the previous slides. Nobody has to be great to start. They have to start somewhere. Early success or lack thereof doesn't correlate with later success, doesn't always. I want you to be well-rounded in swimming and outside of swimming. So please do other things and have other things in your life. And attention to the process and building a strong foundation and good habits will bring success. Success is going to differ from person to person. We're all different, but keep your eye on what you're supposed to do the right thing, and we'll go from there. Everyone has room to improve. Again, the idea of continuous improvement. I just ask that everyone is trying their very best at all times. And I think I've said this to kids sometimes, like, oh, well, I told you one thing. I want you to focus on that from now until like the end of time, every single stroke that you take. And I'm not really joking when I say that. If you're gonna be there, if your parents drove you to practice and they're paying money for you to be there and we're giving you feedback, you may as well use that time wisely. And so that's where some of my high expectations come from. We do have zero tolerance for commenting on or disparaging other swimmers because we're all at different levels. We should be supportive of our teammates and lift them up, not bring them down. And then again, using our time wisely. I specifically do not have a team that practices 1 million hours a week. I think at some point there's diminishing returns. I also think teams that put their 10, 12-year-olds in the water for 2.5 hours a night are crazy because there are only so many hours in the day to train. And what are you going to do when you need a little bit more? So I very much operate under this, there's certain cards to play for success. We're not going to play them until we have to. And we're going to focus on technique because that's going to give us the biggest payoff. I think it worked really well during COVID when everyone had decreased pool time. I believe, a year ago, I sat on a similar Zoom and I said, if there's a team to be on during the pandemic, it's probably us. And I didn't mean that because Jim Worthington, doesn't like to shut down his pool, but I meant that because we were already kind of small. We already focused on technique. We already had this idea of maximizing our time. So it wasn't that hard for us to adapt to some of the ways that other teams had to. All right, so a little bit of team history for those of you guys who don't know, and maybe some of you do know about the NAC before we got here. But yeah, 2019, Charlene was at the NAC. I applied after a somewhat tumultuous year at HCY, and I just needed to take a step back. I was looking for something a little bit different to try to rebuild. I applied to the NAC knowing nothing about it, didn't know what I was walking into. Charlene and Ben were pretty transparent that it was a startup team, and it was. So we had about 45 swimmers at evals. I had one legal backstroke turn, and that swimmer's not even on our team anymore. So it was totally rebuilding from scratch. If you're a brand new swim parent, we basically had almost all brand new swim parents that year. So please talk to Charlene, take a look on our website. We have a whole archive of parent question of the weeks because we ran a series of those every week in our weekly newsletter. Just from an education standpoint, we spent the first couple months of that season being like, hey, here's why you can't wear board shorts to practice. Here's what a swim cap is. Here's what it means to go to a meet. Here's why we have equipment. And those sorts of things. We ended up with about 45 swimmers. Most of them were brand new. Like our really experienced ones maybe had a year or two of summer league. And Charlene and I got USA sanction for the team. And we knew that, the USA meets were pretty competitive, but I think that was really where that continuous improvement came from. Like, hey, you can't worry about what the kid 3 heats from now from you is doing. You can only worry about what you can do, and we're going to try to get a little better every time you get in the pool. So keep that perspective about where we're starting and where we're going. Of the 45, we had about 25 kids compete in USA meets, and most of them made bronze or silvers, which was wildly exceeded my expectations. I think I took a look at who we had at the beginning of the year, and I was like, all right, if we can get a couple of kids to bronze and maybe 1 to silvers, that was going to be a huge success, and we wildly exceeded that. So we were really excited to come out of that and head into, hopefully we were looking at, a summer season where these kids are going to do well, maybe they'll recruit and bring people back. And then COVID happened. So year 2, I'm not naive. I realized that COVID was the best thing to ever happen to our team. Because we were one of the only places open, we became a home for many displaced swimmers. I think people who wouldn't have given us a second glance, really came in with an open mind, and I hope that most of them are staying. I think a lot of people found out that we could do some cool things here at the NAC, and that we could set them up for success. So we expanded to about 75 swimmers, and we had to start a developmental program. So I'll pause there because the first year, if you were interested in swimming and I thought you could make it through a 45-minute practice without drowning, you were on our team. And it didn't matter if you didn't do rotary breathing and freestyle. It didn't matter if you didn't know breaststroke. If you knew breaststroke, you were like in our top group. So that's like kind of where we started from. And then what happened was those kids all kind of stayed in their groups, and I needed to have a new entry-level group. And that's where our developmental program came from. And I think that's been really successful. Allows the kids to learn the strokes without the focus of competing. They can compete a little bit if they want to. And I would actually argue, based on the evals last night, it's now harder to make our developmental program than it was to make white in 2019, just because we're getting a little bit pickier now. We're really trying to make sure that we're taking kids who are really appropriate for swim team. They've mastered other things. Again, this idea of foundational excellence. So in that expansion, we unfortunately could not get into meets, despite me trying to offer my firstborn child and whatever they wanted to do. So we held meets in the only 2 lanes with blocks. And even in our pool, which I don't think was ever really built for a swim meet, not a big, huge competitive atmosphere like you might have at a larger meet. I think all of our kids got best times, some of them by a lot, some of them beat their yards, times, and meters. And even though there was no champs based on the same times, we tripled the number of champs qualifiers. So of those 75, and some of them were developmental or 8 and under who don't have champs qualifying times, we had about 55 or 60 who at least made bronze. We had about 20 who made silvers. We had 2 kids swim under JO times. And then this summer, when we were finally able to get into a couple of USA meets and get some sanctioned times. We were able to get our first swimmer to JOs. He did final in 3 of 4 of his events, which was really exciting. So we're just really looking forward to this year, kind of as a chance to show what we can do. We had a lot of turnover, I guess not even turnover, but people who came to us last year, and they came because I think we were one of the only games in town. But this year we're getting a lot of inquiries, and I think it's because I'm hoping that it's because positive word has started to spread about what we're doing. And so I'm really excited to have a bunch of people who are here because they believe in our team and our philosophy. And I think we're gonna, we're gonna put everything together, and we're gonna be able to go to these meets this year, and we're gonna be able to show what we can do at the NAC. And it's been a really long, arduous journey from when we started in 2019. And the focus on well-rounded athletes, I think, again, keeps long-term focus, but also, gives our athletes an edge, over some of the teams that maybe are just swim. Because I think, they're happier, they're healthier, they're able to make improvements a little bit more quickly when we're doing things like that. So new this year, along the lines of the well-rounded athletes. So I talked specifically about in-person dryland. That is just for our competitive team. Please take your developmentals, have them play outside, have them do other things, have them play other sports. We don't need to do swim-specific training at that level because developmental is still an introduction. But really excited about the return to Parisi. And then we're also going to do this IMR IMX program, which is proficiency in all events. And it's a USA swimming program that looks at event PowerPoints, and essentially every swim that is swum at a USA sanctioned meet is graded kind of based, like, how fast is this for however the age is. And that's not really why I want to do it, although it's kind of cool to see, all right, well, what are my strongest events? Where can I bridge gaps? Who can get the largest, overall IMR, IMX score. So that's kind of cool. And we are still going to do that because I'm going to track it for team records. Because, sometimes you have very fast freestylers who can't do anything else, or we have breaststroke only kids or something like that. What I want to do with this is really just get everyone to swim everything. There are a lot of kids who are like, oh, I don't like backstroke. I don't want to swim it at a meet. And I'm like, I kind of want you to swim everything because, we work on everything at practice. It's important for us to be able to measure improvements. Sometimes maybe you're frustrated with your breaststroke and you drop a bunch of time in your backstroke, and you can leave that meet feeling really good about yourself. It encourages kids to step outside of their comfort zone a little bit, work on something that might be a little bit challenging for them, and swim it. So what we're going to do this year is we will, I'll recognize the age group ones or even the devs, I don't think that would happen, but who complete the list. I have it as age group 2 and 3 and up, because age group 2, you're really supposed to be legal and everything. Our age group 1 kids might only have 3 or 4 strokes, so they're not quite ready to complete this list. But what we're going to do is recognize our swimmers who compete and swim legally all of these events throughout the season. We'll have an IMR team, we'll have an IMX team. We'll give out caps for that just as an additional incentive to be a little bit more well-rounded. So I'm really excited to bring that in. The IMX, gets a little challenging when we're at some of those older ages, 200 fly, 400 IM. Our kids can do it. My absolute favorite event, I have 2 favorite events. They're both 12 and under events, the 500 free and the 200 backstroke. My favorite 13 over events, probably the mile. I like the events that reward the kids who come to practice and work hard and have good technique. Because sometimes you can use strength to get through a 50 free, but you got to be doing something right to do well in those events. So I like to reward the kids who are trying to do things well. So those are 2 things that are new this year. All right, so our practice groups, and I'll go through this quickly, show the schedule. A lot of you, I think, have an idea of where your kids are placed, or I'm talking to you at evaluations. Developmental is our true entry level. Little experience, they do not yet know 4 strokes. Developmental is not swim lessons. So we are not taking kids who would be better served by swim lessons. You must be able to do a full 25 of freestyle with rotary breathing, a full 25 of something that pretty clearly resembles backstroke, and again, be able to get through a 45-minute practice, not just in terms of endurance, but also in terms of being able to listen and focus for that amount of time. Our developmentals are split by age. I think usually it's 8 or 9. We sometimes go either way with 9-year-olds. I think we're going to make the cutoff at 8 this year, just based on the interest. If you've got a 9-year-old who you thought was going to be Deb 1, just reach out to me or Melissa and we can work that out. Developmental groups do not really compete, and we'll talk about that. The goal of developmental is to get out of developmental. You're not supposed to hang out there forever. It's supposed to be a 1-year thing if you're probably 9 or over. If you're still an 8 and under and you're still trying to figure out how to use your body, we might let you stay there for an extra year. That's kind of a case-by-case basis, but really developmental is supposed to be preparation for the competitive team. And that's the goal of developmental. On the competitive groups, age group 1 is 10 and under. They should have freestyle backstroke. They should be able to do a flip, even if it's not a flip turn, be able to dive from the side, and be 75% legal, meaning they can do breaststroke or butterfly, or like they're kind of close in both, maybe not 100%. We do have some kids in age group 1 who are legal in everything and can do 100 IM, but maybe their practice maturity isn't quite where it needs to be for age group 2. Age group 2, you're 95% legal. You know, we still make mistakes sometimes, but you pretty much know everything. If you're in that group, you are going to do flip turns at every wall. You are going to listen to a set and remember it. You are going to wear a snorkel and not complain about it. So like age group 2, it's a little bit like, all right, you can come in once you know everything, but like the expectations there are a little higher because we're going to try to, get a little bit more done. Age group 3 will be kids about 10 to 13. They're legal in everything. We're going to start swimming a little bit of sets, using the pace clock a little bit, nothing too challenging. Again, focus is still on technique. But we're starting to prep for some of that higher level training. Within these groups, developmental is 100% technique. Age group 1 is 90% technique, 10% racing skills, a little bit of aerobic stuff. We tend to do a lot of aerobic stuff as kick. Just so that we're, if we're building aerobic ability, we're not doing that in a way where the stroke's deteriorating. Age group 2 is whatever I have on the sheet, I think it's like 75-25. Age group 3 is like 60-40, maybe 70-30. So we're still very heavily weighted on technique in those groups. Even juniors, 50-50. That's going to be for kids who are primarily 11 and over. Maybe they turn 11 during the season. They can follow sets. We can start to introduce some of the advanced training. It also includes maybe some swimmers who don't quite want the commitment of the senior group, or maybe don't quite train at those speeds. So we do have older kids in the junior group as well. Then we have our senior group. That's still about probably 40-60 or 30-70. So we're still doing a heavy component of technique, I think a lot more than probably some area teams. But that's primarily for our 13 and overs, or anyone who I think needs that level of training, again, who needs to play that card, they're ready for it. We're going to train at aerobic thresholds for the former swimmers. We're going to pull out the John or Banchek color pace charts. We're going to do stuff like that. It's going to get complicated. So you need to be able to do that. You also need to be able to hold certain intervals. Both our junior and senior groups, I think high school swimming is really important. I think there are some club teams in the area who say, oh, you have to come to all my practices, and the high school coach is saying, well, you have to come to all my practices, and they're putting those kids in a tough spot. I very much want our kids to swim high school. For a lot of them, that's the pinnacle of their swimming achievement, because not everyone swims in college. What we do is they would swim with us full-time, September, October through the first half of November. And then we have an option where you pay a decreased rate. You can still come to meets with us, because sometimes, you swim the same 3 events in your high school meet every week, and not all the events are offered. But you could also pop in like once or twice a week with us. And the reason we ask you to do that, we still want to keep like a little tentative hold on those kids, is really to make sure that all the really good technique work that we do is not deteriorating in high school practice. Because those practices are not necessarily, they're run with a different focus in mind. They're very sprint focused, and they tend to not always, it's not always a focus on learning, it's a focus on conditioning. So making sure that doesn't deteriorate. I also feel like it's important for the high school kids, even if they're swimming a lot with their high school team to try to pop into a couple of our meets so that we can see what happens in a race. Sometimes what kids do in practice is not what they do in races, so we want to make sure we can give that feedback. So those are our groups. This is our schedule. There is a typo here. There should be 5:10 to 5:40. I noticed that this morning. But all of our dry lands are half hour. You get 3 of them in senior. You get 2 in junior, age group 2, age group 3, and age group 1. Our devs don't have juniors. So you don't need to make it to every single practice. You are welcome to come to every single practice. I think if you're in senior, junior, age group 3, you really should be making it 3 times a week. And because the senior practices are a little longer, it's there's still so many more than the age group 3 if they come 3 times a week. Age group 2, age group 1 really should be there twice a week. We don't really have an attendance policy, but we teach to the bulk of the group. I gear practices towards the kids who are there regularly. So if you fall behind the rest of the group, it's not fair to everyone else to take the coach time to kind of catch you up to speed because you weren't in enough practices. I'll work around fall sports as long as you come and use your time wisely when you're at our practice. Developmental doesn't have. None of these groups technically have an attendance policy. Keep in mind with developmental 1 and 2, you might only get a year there. And if you miss all your developmental practices and at the end of that year, you're not ready for age group 1, I don't know that we have a spot for you at the NAC. So, especially as our team's expanding. So if you're in that developmental group, again, use that year wisely, learn your strokes, be ready to go, some special considerations for kids who are a little bit younger, but know that, you can't hang out in developmental forever. In terms of the attendance policy, we will track it. We will track dry land attendance because it's the same as pool time. I want to take kids who want to be on our team and are going to put a good faith effort in, because I would hate to leave someone on our waiting list who would have been at every practice and would have put a real effort in for someone who maybe shows up once a week and then falls behind the group and then wants to drop or wants to quit. I want to make sure that everyone here is going to be dedicated, knowing that, we're accommodating to other things. So what's going to happen is, no formal attendance policy, but if at the end of the season you're in the senior group and you've got 50% attendance and next year you want to come back, I might not save a spot for you. We might have to see who comes back. I just have to, kind of make sure that we have kids who we're using our lane space most effectively. We're not coaching a bunch of swimmers who didn't come that day. So just keeping that in mind. Obviously, the high school option is its own thing. So if you're doing the high school option, I can work with you separately for that. But that's our schedule. So I'll correct that one dry land. And I looked at this a bunch of times, but I'll make sure we don't have any other typos, and I'll make sure we send that out and get it posted. Required equipment. I care a lot about equipment. Do not come to practice without your equipment. I will be very upset. And we do not share equipment, especially in COVID times. You cannot fully participate in practice if you don't have equipment. And if your kid shows up and doesn't have their fins, they don't have their snorkel, and they're like, well, what should I do instead? I honestly put that onus on the swimmer. If they're 9 or 10 or over, I'm like, you're going to have to figure it out, because I wrote my practice for everyone to be prepared. So, I have said that I have this idea of high expectations, and I don't apologize for that. And that's across the board. Kids are kids, and I know that. We don't get better unless someone pushes us a little bit to adhere to certain standards. So that's kind of where I come from with this. We do have a preparedness policy. It's on page 6 of our handbook. If your swimmer is regularly unprepared, there's a whole thing where we'll call you. We may just charge the card on file and order it ourselves for your kid to have at practice. That's how much we care about equipment. Age group 2 and up are required to use a snorkel. No one likes snorkels. I don't think we have a single kid on this team who likes their snorkel. I love snorkels, and we get a lot of benefit out of them. From age group 2 and up, we do a lot of our kicking with snorkels because the body position is better than it is with a kickboard. We do a lot of our technique work with a snorkel. The running joke among coaches is that everyone's a good swimmer until they have to breathe. So we can take the breath out of the equation, focus on some other things. Snorkels also build your aerobic capacity more quickly because you're breathing through a smaller hole. And so I try to tell the kids, and I think they get enough buy-in, but like, you're kind of getting extra credit every time you use a snorkel. If you swim at 25, you're getting credit for like 30 or 35 in terms of your aerobic development. And with the older kids, I'll use them sometimes after a threshold set to bring heart rates down. So I love snorkels, center mount snorkel. You're required to wear one if you are in age group 2 or up. If you do not want to wear your snorkel, you can't be in a group above age group 1. And I know they're tough. We usually try to teach kids how to use them. I am not kidding when I say go home, wear your snorkel around the house, get a nose clip, wear it in the bathtub. We've had kids do all of those things. Figure out how to use your snorkel. If you're new to that group, feel free to play around with it before the first day of practice. So for all of our groups who require mesh bag, don't order that through One, order it through Swim Outlet, because the ones from One Swim tend to rip. Mesh bag, kickboard, long fins. We want rubber fins, not snorkeling or scuba fins that are super hard. The rubber fins are the right level of resistance. They'll build a little bit of ankle flexibility. They'll teach them the right way to kick. We also use them a lot of times with the older kids in warm up. Actually, I use them in almost every group in warm up, unless it depends on the group, but it takes a lot of pressure off the shoulders, because our muscles in our legs are a lot bigger. So it decreases our injury risk. So that's why we warm up with them a lot. We have pull buoy. Everybody needs a water bottle. If you're, even 2% dehydrated, you're incapable of swimming within 10% of your potential. Snorkel for age group 2 and up. Paddles for junior and senior. Power bags for junior and senior. Power bags are sold through One Swim. I don't, with the paddles and the power bags, I'm not saying we never use them for resistance. We use them more for feel. So if you're like, hey, my 11-year-old who weighs 85 pounds doesn't need this resistance, I theoretically agree with you. But they can feel certain things that they do. These, the paddles that we use, the power bags that we use, tend to be self-correcting devices. So that's part of the reason we use them. Your snorkel should be a center mount snorkel. We have a pretty cheap one on One Swim. I like the Finis Glide or the Finis Swimmer Snorkel, Speedo Bullet Head, any of those, the center mount ones, not a scuba snorkel. As far as paddles go, I went to the ones touch paddle. They're okay. I think actually the Finis Agility, the yellow ones that your thumbs go through, are my favorite. So that's my first level recommendation. Speedo makes one, Sporty makes one. Don't get anything gigantic, because again, we're not going for resistance, we're going for feel. If you are a parent new to swimming, do not order weird brands from Amazon. I would go on our portals or reach out to Charlene, reach out to me, make sure you have what you need, because the worst thing for people to do is to spend money ordering something and then come to practice and it's the wrong thing. So if you're not sure what you're doing, please reach out to us. So that's our equipment. Don't forget your equipment, very important. All right. Our practice policies, I want everyone prepared, including equipment, and be prepared, ready to focus. That means you're on time. And if you're not on time, you better hustle when you get on the pool deck. Nothing, I get a little mad when I see kids strolling or chatting with people when they're already 10 minutes late for practice. So if you're running late, I know kids don't drive. It's a lot of times not their fault. Have them hustle when they get in there. And they should be ready to focus, ready to listen, ready to learn during that time. Proper attire, no two-piece suits. I don't care if it's an athletic two-piece, no two-piece suits. And girls must have straps that cross or meet in the back. I don't want anything that's a distraction that kids are fixing consistently. We want to be able to focus on the swimming, not on the suit that we're wearing. Similarly, boys may not practice in board shorts. A typical recreational swimsuit. They should be in jammers or a Speedo, little brief. The board shorts, they literally cannot learn the correct way to swim because they're going to weigh them down in the water. They're going to build bad habits. So we just do not swim that way. Caps for anyone whose hair covers their eyes when they're swimming, and that's boys or girls. I've told a lot of people, I had a 16-year-old boy who had shaggy hair in front of his face, and he gets in the pool for practice and he's swimming freestyle and he's breathing, he's flicking his head every time. And he's like, well, I just need to get my hair out of my face. I don't do that when I have a cap on at meets. And then we go to a meet. actually, I'm pretty sure I said, put your cap on and swim it for me. And he was still doing the same head flick because it was in his neural pathways. And I said, all right, you're going to wear a cap from now until the end of time. So he wore a cap. But you may think that it's not a distraction in practice. It's a distraction in practice. Bring your kid with a cap. And working goggles, bring spares, especially with COVID. I don't really like to share things that like touch eyes. That kind of skews me out anyway. So don't, be prepared with that. We don't have a ton of extras, and the extras are a little suspect. A lot of them don't work. You don't know who wore them last. Please be prepared. We have safety recommendations, both in terms of practice flow, circle swimming, and we explain that to the kids. We have certain protocols for COVID-19 that we'll talk about. No caps or apparels from other teams. So you can wear a pink cap, you can wear a silly cap, I don't care. Do not wear a cap from your old winter team. If it's a summer league only team, and I mean truly summer league, I'll pick on them, but like not Penn Aquatics LBSL, because Penn Aquatics is also a team that competes in the winter, but if it's a summer league only team, like that team only exists in the summer, you may wear that cap. Please don't wear a bunch of apparel from other teams. I want us to be a little bit more unified. Make sure that you're kind of in that headspace and you're ready to swim for us. Finish your repeats to the wall, or if we're doing, depending on the social distancing, a station. Make sure you're listening during instructions. So, I'm happy to repeat things. We are getting sound baffles, which is exciting. So it shouldn't be as echoey. It should be easier to hear me. If we can keep the kids at one end, I won't have a microphone on or anything like that. But it takes a lot of time from other kids when a swimmer isn't listening and is like, wait, what? And then I have to repeat myself several times. And that kid who did hear me the first time and did pay attention is ready to go and ready to practice. They're losing out on practice time. So we don't want to do anything that is going to negatively affect our teammates. That being said, I know they're kids. I know I need to repeat myself a few times. I know I need to explain things. And I always tell kids, make sure you know what we're doing before you push off. Because when kids push off and then they stop mid-lane and they're like, wait, what are we doing? That causes a traffic jam when everyone goes behind them. So, just making sure that we know what's going on. We're following along. If you're leading a lane and you're reading the clock, you're able to do that. And you're just being a good teammate to everyone else. I will dismiss swimmers if they are interfering with the practice quality of others. And that means fooling around. That means doing anything that's taking away from anyone else. We need to, we're going to have fun, but we're also going to work hard. And we want to make sure that we're creating an environment that is conducive to learning. No parents on the deck. It's not that you can watch practice from the upstairs. I don't do this even during non-COVID times, but we really don't have a ton of deck space. It tends to be a distraction. I don't talk to parents during practice unless there's like some dire emergency, and then I usually leave the pool deck for that. So that's like a COVID thing, but also an all the time thing. Bring your kid, have them do their thing. We just don't want that layer of distraction. We want them to be able to focus with us. So those are our practice policies. Meet requirements, again, swim team, not swim lessons. We are going to have meets this year. They're on page 14 of the handbook. I may be wrong, but it's in the table of contents. We are going to offer a couple of in-house, more as like a time trial or like mock meet situation. I'm hoping, I did talk to the Lawrence Lightning coach. I'm hoping we can get back to doing a couple of dual meets against Lawrence Lightning, which are kind of fun, similar to like a summer league level sprint events. Those are good experiences for the kids who might be a little bit more intimidated by some of the USA meets. Our developmentals will have the option of in-house and dual meets. And if there are kids who are in developmental who want to register and try to go to USA meets, we can talk about that. It's going to depend on the kid. Melissa's going to need to sign off. We will need to register them separately, and we can do that. But we will have plans to go to about 7 or 8 USA meets based on, and they're like legit ones that I'm pretty sure we can go to based on coaches I know who have said we're invited, or people who have given us verbal, oh yeah, we're going to host a meet this weekend. It's not going to be like, assuming things don't get too crazy with COVID and the world doesn't shut down, and I knock on wood it won't, but assuming things kind of stay where they're at and we are able to have meets, we have meets to go to this year, which is really exciting. And we will have LSC championships. Those dates are already on the Mid-Atlantic planning calendar. So age groups, junior should be looking to go to minimum 2 to 3 USA meets. plus the in-house possible dual meets. Seniors who are not swimming primarily with high school should go to 3 to 4. But again, I still want even those kids to try to make it to a couple. We are going to have a holiday focus meet. I will likely do a full macro plan. And I know I gave a couple kids a baby taper last year, but we'll probably do a baby taper or anything that's developmentally appropriate, see what kind of fast times we can get mid-season to set us up for championship qualifying. The championships, assuming you qualify, they're optional if you're in age group 1 or you're in developmental. We have to see what happens with mini champs. If it's like 3 hours away, it's going to depend on who our minis are and who wants to travel. It's recommended for age group 2, like really, really strongly recommended. It's required for age group 3 and above. So if you're in one of those higher level groups, I expect that you're swimming for championships. I know there's no bronze and silvers once you turn 15. They let 15-year-olds go to silvers if you don't have senior champs times. I'm only going to take kids who are approximately a silvers level to that, but we'll offer an alternate finale meet with one of the teams that I know in New Jersey who usually runs like an end of season meet. So you can always go to that one. That would be in place of your championship meet. Failure, same thing with the practice policies. If you join us and then, you somehow don't come to any meet, if you don't do that, I'm not going to save your spot for next year. I'm not saying that I will necessarily kick you out and say we can't do it, but we may not invite you back for that. Because again, we want to make sure that we're putting time into kids who want to be on a swim team and aren't just there for swim lessons. There will be every time we have a meet, you'll commit to it by a date listed in Team Unify. Depending on the meet, we might enter everyone, but most of them will require commitment. And if you miss that date, sometimes we can get you in, sometimes we can't. So don't be like, I'll just email after and see if I can get in, because those meets fill sometimes and we can't. So in terms of policy, arrive at the specified check-in time, usually 15 minutes before the first warm-up. You can message. We'll use the GroupMe app again this year, or you can send an email if you're running late. If I don't hear from you and you're not there and there's a scratch sheet and it's due, I'm going to pull you out of the meet. And if you are like, we don't actually need to get there on time, and you do that more than once, I'm probably going to scratch you, or we're going to have a larger discussion. Because the kids who are late tend to be a distraction to the ones who got there on time. And then everyone has to stop what they're doing to focus on those kids who are late. You might miss warm up. They might be flustered. Please come on time. I know things happen, but make your best effort to make our check-in time. Even if you think it's ridiculously early, please talk to me about that. Don't just show up whenever you want. I got rid of our team suit on the swim outlet site. Just wear a solid black or blue, nothing like neon. Obviously no other team suits. You must wear a NAC cap at meets, and that includes boys, even if your hair is too short. I want everyone to know where you swim. I want to be able to find you in the pool. I want us to have some degree of team unity. No apparel from other teams at meets. That includes parkas. We will be getting 2 caps. You will get a team t-shirt. The competitive groups will also receive a warm-up jacket. The developmentals are not really going to meets, and I kind of want to give them something to work toward in terms of getting a warm-up jacket when you make the competitive team. So we'll be getting those for our competitive groups this year. So please bring those. You must sit with the team at meets. Don't go sit with your parents. Don't go wander off. You must report to the coach for post-race feedback. That's the whole reason we're at the meet. You want to hear what we said about it. Obviously, sportsmanship, respect for officials. Parents are responsible for meet fees after the entry deadline. I know some kids get sick. If we cut the check, it needs to get paid either way. Things happen. We can talk about it. But if you commit to a meet, make sure you know that you're paying for that meet. So we can always work with people on a case-by-case basis, but you are responsible for any meet fees. And we don't need a ton of volunteers because we're usually small. We do when we run an in-house meet, but please be prepared to volunteer at any meet where your kid is swimming. If we struggle to get volunteers, other teams don't invite us to other meets. We did a really great job at this summer. I think one of the meets we went to, I signed up every single parent who was there at the time. And I think people were appreciative of that. We brought 6 timers and 3 kids and it worked out fine. So we want to be overly helpful just because meets are still a little hard to come by. We're trying to build our reputation. We want to be a team that is really well behaved, swims really well, and also is really helpful to the host team. We have a couple of USA Swimming Code of Conduct things. There's the anti-bullying. This is in there. it's required by USA Swimming, but obviously we don't want to condone bullying. There's a minor athlete abuse and prevention policy, which is under USA Swimming Safe Sport, which protects swimmers, coaches, other adults. So that's in there in full. All of our coaches and staff members and everything are trained in safe sport with the athlete protection training. There is an option to become a safe sport sanctioned team, and it's only been something that's happened in the last couple of years. I would like to try to do it and be recognized as the first team in either Bucks or Mercer County to do that. And in order to do that, we need a certain percentage of parents and swimmers who are 12 and over to take athlete protection training. We need at least 10%, but we get like more points toward it if we get more. Those links are on our website. Please wait until we've USA registered all the kids. So we'll do that like in October and we'll send a reminder out. But I want to put that on everybody's radar. The training is age appropriate. So if you're not thrilled about your teenager learning about certain things, I think it's good to make everybody aware of what appropriate behavior between swimmers and adults is. All of our swimmers who turn 18, and we will have some this year, will be required to take safe sport or athlete protection training before they can compete in an 18-year-old meet or in a meet as an 18-year-old. So we're going to try to do that. All right. And then this is probably why a lot of people joined today. And I will preface this with I did write this like the beginning of July, and I realized things are changing every day with COVID. I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel here. We're going to just do, I think, whatever Council Rock School District does and revisit our guidelines as needed. Right now, we're still at a moderate risk, so masks are optional for swimmers and staff, although we recommend them for people who have not been vaccinated. I know some of the kids cannot be vaccinated. If that changes, we'll make adjustments. Everyone's welcome to wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask, we'll still do the plastic bags. If you need to grab one, we'll still have a container at the end of the lane. We may need whatever we do, and our team tends to be more conservative on a COVID scale than the general NAC. So I always try to be like extra safe to make sure that our swimmers and families feel comfortable and that we're not contributing to the spread of COVID. But even with that, whatever our personal policies are, if we go to a meet, they might have additional precautions. So we just need to all agree to that. If your kid has a medical exemption, feel free to email me directly. I know a lot of our swimmers are already vaccinated, which is great. I've been very open. I got mine the second I was able to get it. I understand everyone's making their own personal choices, but we want to be respectful of everyone regardless of what they're doing. So assuming that everyone's behaving in a way that's safe and respectful to others, we won't have any problems. But I don't want to get into the politics of things. Just try to do what is correct make sure that everybody's safe. As of right now, I would love to remove social distancing in the lanes. We did it over the summer. I don't think the kids are on the wall that long. We have pretty good ventilation. We're spending most of our time swimming. So I think I'm hoping that we can do that. Would like to limit the number of people in the pickup drop-off area, so no need to hover by the pool, especially if you've got an older kid who can meet you outside of your car. If you come in contact with anyone with COVID, please quarantine as needed, email the staff. This is outlined a little bit more in the handbook. We will revisit this if things get a little crazy, but just wanted to high level. We're going to be reasonable about this. We want to make sure that we're safe for everybody, but also nothing. We want to strike a balance between what keeps everybody safe and what makes sense. So financial policies. If you pay a deposit, we're giving you a spot over somebody else. We are going to fill. My evaluations are full. I have people who are on a waiting list for evaluations. I think some people may have joined tonight who still don't have an evaluation. And I don't want to evaluate more kids than I could feasibly take. So we'll open that. We'll open it up assuming that if we have room later. So if you pay a deposit and you register by the 15th, you're good. We have your spot. The early registration discount is primarily for returning families, assuming that you were on good terms at the end of the season, financially and otherwise, and we have reason to think that you're coming back. We have a spot for you. And I have kind of like given a placeholder for all of those. So once you put your deposit in, we're assuming that you're going to pay us through March 2022. Again, provided nothing too crazy happens. We understand like if your kid gets injured and can't swim, and like we'll give a refund for medical. We're reasonable. We'll work on things on a case by case basis. So but it's a good faith effort to join our team through March 2022. The billing will occur over around the 15th of the month. And it really pays for the month ahead. So that just kind of is outlined what we have here. That runs us right up to March, because we start the season on September 20th. And then March 17th-ish will be when that'll be our last day of practice. Silvers will be that following weekend. And then if someone does make like senior camps or something, we can, obviously work with them, or if they make zones, we can train them for that. But it's March 17th for your highest qualified meet. Your deposit covers your USA swimming fee for the year, caps, t-shirt, warm-ups for the competitive team, an administrative fee that goes towards some of like the subsidies for the social things that we plan throughout the year, and just some of like the pool space we might take for like an in-house meet, those sorts of things. So that's your deposit does not go towards your team fees. Deposit is non-refundable. If you're giving us a deposit, we're assuming you're coming. So we don't give that back. Regardless, especially because a lot of times we've already processed your USA swimming registration, your caps, we'll already kind of use that money because it's not really for the team fees, it's for things that we do for the team. And I'm sorry, I probably talked too much. We're running a little over, but I can stay on. But email is our primary form of communication. I know we get a lot of emails. It is the best way to communicate everything in bulk. It allows you to have reference for things that are in there. Charlene can answer 75% of your questions. She also don't ask me about billing. I don't touch the billing. I don't do a lot of the administrative stuff. But you can email her at swimteam@Newtown Athletic, which is pretty easy to remember. My email, I think most of you have, coachkristennac@gmail. I just like the Gmail platform better. Anything that you want to ask me that's specific to your swimmer development practices, meet entries, whatever. You can also go to your lead coach, so like Melissa for developmental, or hopefully our new age group 1 coach if you're in age group 1. If you think it's something you're not sure if it's for me or Charlene, you can copy both of us. But a lot of times Charlene will triage those for me and forward the ones that need my attention. Aquatics is for like a little bit higher level billing, like decisions, miscellaneous aquatics. Sean is our for easy questions. So those are your contact information. We will do our best to respond within 24 hours. I tend to be pretty responsive. I do work a 9 to 5, so I'm not always available during those times, but I work on a computer, so that tab is open a lot of times. I just might not get into it if it's something involved. We have a Team Unified platform, so that's our nacswimteam.com. You'll get a login for that if you don't already have one. And that works, and I do have it on a screen share if anyone wants to see during the question and answers. But you can like go in there, you can say, yes, I'm coming to the meet. You can choose events if it's a meet. Our website has a lot of helpful information, and I try to document almost everything in writing. So it probably exists somewhere. So I would check there for info before going to me or Charlene or anybody else, just because you'll probably get the information quicker that way. We send a Shark Bites newsletter every Sunday. That's always just got like team news, what's upcoming this week. Don't forget about this swim meet. Here's your check-in time. Also recognizes some of the good things that the kids do throughout the week. We'll use the GroupMe app. Kind of like in place of a text. It'll allow the parents in the group to connect with each other and message the coaches. But everyone's number's hidden, which I think is just always kind of nice because then you're not giving out that information. I specifically ask you do not put your kids in GroupMe. Kids can email and text me, but it gets a little funny because the parent's always supposed to be copied, and the GroupMe allows for kids to direct message me, and I just don't want to open up that can of worms. So no direct contact between swimmers and coaches or admins without parents copied. And all of our safe sport policies are on the website and in the handbook. The whole Safe Sport tab is pretty robust now that I was trying to get ahead of some of those requirements for the Safe Sport. So key dates. We started evaluations last night. Placed first come, first served with spots reserved for returning families. So I have a crazy Google Doc right now where I've got like, the first maybe, like if we're talking about our senior group, which will have, we'll take up to 27 kids in that group. I've got maybe 20 of the spots filled in with kids who I think might come back or might be in that group. And then there's like another 7 or so where if someone comes in for evals, I can slot them in. If on August 15th, you don't commit, you're not sure, I kind of release those spots. And if I've got more kids coming in for evals or kids who came in for evals and are waiting for a spot, I'm going to slot them in there. So 8/15 is the deadline for early registration and to guarantee your spot if you're returning. If there are certain reasons why you can't do that, please reach out to us directly. But that was also part of the reason why we provided the early registration discount as an incentive to let us know what you're doing early enough so that we can make sure we're maximizing the pool space and getting everyone in the program who wants to be here. I will only give the early registration discounts to like the first kids who kind of slot in that like bonus group. And there's some groups, like I think age group 2 or 3 only had like 4 or 5 spots once I put our existing kids in. So some of those might fill quickly. Approximately 8/18, and I say this because I will be on vacation until 8/18, we'll release the spots and we'll let late evaluation swimmers know if they're in. I'm reasonably confident that everyone who already has an evaluation, we can find room for them, but it's possible that just depending on placement, we might not be able to do that right away. 8/19, so our pool's gonna shut down a week later than we thought it was going to, so we might run some evals in there. Like I said, I'm vaccinated, but I'm also traveling, so I may or may not feel great about coming back and running evaluations right away without getting a test first, but we might talk to some of the other coaches, see what we can do. That likely won't be announced until right around those couple of days, so keep an eye out for those. We're shutting down the pool, which kind of explains why we need to get things in before that shutdown. For some maintenance, refurbishment, we're getting at least the poles for 2 new blocks, and those will be there, and the sound baffles. So some improvements to that in the family locker room and normal pool stuff like draining the pool. I'll run some additional evaluations when we open back up. Want everyone registered before the season starts. Season's going to begin, and that will run through to the 17th. So next steps, please get us your registration forms ASAP if you're a returning family. It's not guaranteed if it's beyond 8/15. I wrote a whole frequently asked questions, so please refer to that. People have emailed us their credit card numbers, so you can do it that way. I don't love having those credit card numbers like in the ether. So if your credit card number is not changing, feel free to email that to us. You can drop it off at the NAC front desk, the aquatics office as well. You can fill it out if you're coming for an eval. Returning families, just because we have things in a couple different places, I want to make sure that we don't miss that, like you said, you were coming back and then we gave someone else your spot. So please cover all your bases and like commit on Team Unify 2. If you're having trouble with that, please email me and Charlene. We'll have some rolling admission after 8/15. So if I release those eval spots and you don't get to me until the 19th and everything's full, it kind of is what it is. We do want a signed handbook packet by September 20th, the first day of practice, and we won't let you practice if you haven't acknowledged our handbook policies past 9/27. And if applicable, please give us your transfer forms if you're coming from another USA team. Kids, I know we're out of the water for a little while. Please stay active in August. Please do things that, can benefit your swimming. Let's do a lot of core work. Let's do a lot of cross training. Yoga, work on your flexibility. Please stay active and be ready to go when you come back. I'm definitely really excited to keep working with a lot of these kids and really looking forward to what we can do this upcoming year. So that was way longer than I meant for it to be. I'm very sorry for your Thursday night. But here's our question and answer. Follow us on Instagram. And yeah, I will open it up from there. I'm going to stop the screen share and the recording. All right. And so if anyone has a question, do we have anything in the chat? We do not. All right. Any questions? We can use hand raising or, I don't know, you can jump in.
I'm sure they're just overwhelmed, Kristen.
I'm sorry. It's a lot. I like to be very buttoned up.
Kristen is very detail oriented, and I'm sorry if I dropped off in the middle there. We were driving, and I actually think we just missed the tornado because we drove by and there was cars overturned, and it was just a really weird thing that we went through. So if anybody sees it on the news tonight, we were like right there. It's really strange.
Well, I'm glad you're safe now.
So also, any for parents out there, any new parents, there's no dumb questions. Like if you would just have a silly question, like what is Parisi, or
what is a kickboard?
What is group me? Some people might not even know what that is.
It's
There's no silly, just ask. Email, ask. There's no dumb questions.
You can also email us if you don't want to ask one now, or I will be at the NAC next Saturday for like a drop-in. This presentation will get recorded and posted, or it's recorded and we'll post it. But if you want to like ask me a question in person, you can do that too. What are the typical costs? All right, yeah, for USA meets. All right. So typically, so your meet fees are charged separately from your team fees. But what we do with USA Meets is when we post the USA Meet, it'll have an attachment with meet info. And a lot of times it's like $4 or $5 a meet. Sometimes there's an additional like splash fee for a swimmer for the facility that's like $10 for the meet. So depending on how many distance events might be a little bit more. So depending on how many events you're swimming, depends on how much you pay for that USA Meet. But you know, it's fairly reasonable. I don't think it's crazy different from the kinds of things that you would pay in other sports. So just consider that. That will usually get billed around the meet. We usually wait until after the meet just in case, like, you know, it's a winter season. So if it snows, the meet gets canceled. We don't want to bill you for that and then have to refund everybody. So good for that. We also have another question. We have an eval 8-9. If it's first come, first served, should we try to get an earlier eval? You're welcome to try to do that. Every spot is full. So unless you want to stalk the sign up genius, I don't know that we can make that happen for you. But like I said, I'm reasonably I have that set number of slots because that's what I think I can fit. So if you're in, you're most likely going to get a spot. And that also assumes that every single kid who's coming in for an eval is making the team. There might be a little bit of flux for where I draw the line between who's in junior and who's in senior. So that might happen. But yeah, you're probably fine if you already have an evaluation. And I really try to work these puzzle pieces so that we can fit everybody who wants to swim. So wouldn't worry too much about that. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for all that awesome information. It was a lot, but what I love is everything is detailed in the packet, and they can go back and hear this recording. So I just thank you for our awesome team, and looking forward to having returning families and many new families.
Yeah, very excited.
And I echo that too. I'm really excited about working with the people that we have and the new people. We're, you know, with the new stuff that we've learned things that are over the summer. Yep. So I'm really excited about that.
Great. All right. Last
we hope
call.
you guys are watching the Olympics swimming, right?
Yeah. Well, now I kept everybody late. Oh, what is the maximum number of swimmers in one lane? All right, good question. So, I mean, we'll have to figure it out if we have to go to social distancing. But we take enough for we're gonna take like 8-ish swimmers per lane, knowing that we have about 60 to 70% normal attendance. So we're going to be looking at probably 5 or 6 kids on most days per lane, maybe up to 8. If everyone were to come to the same practice, but you know, again, I've swum in lanes with 10, 12 kids. I've coached in lanes that have 10, 12 kids. not the greatest scenario. So we want to make sure that we're not in that situation. And even then, we'll still be on every kid that's in that lane. Okay. And hi, Shreya and Katya. That was their question. Anyone else? Charlene, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered everything like you always do, very detail oriented. And if parents have questions, they can certainly ask us later on. I know it's a lot for 1 hour.
It was an hour plus. I ran through it this morning and I did it in like 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just excited. We have a great group here, a great team of people, and you know, we never thought this was going to take off like it did, and we're just so excited that you know people are liking our program, and we're excited to offer this program, and everything is just positive about it.
I'm definitely very excited. And second question, will the pool be shared by NAC members during practice? Yeah, we always have at least one lane open for the lap swimmers. So yeah, we would never take the full pool. There are times when we're in 4 of the 5 lanes. So that's just because, you know, that's how we sell our memberships to the members too, that there's always a lap swim lane whenever you want to come. You might need to share it, but we have it there. All right. Anything else anyone want to share? Even anything, any interesting summer news?
I'm sorry. This is Kara. I have
Sure.
one question.
Yeah.
If you have, do you have discounts for having more than one swimmer?
We do, and you're still eligible for the early registration discount. So we typically do a 10% off the second and subsequent siblings, the ones that are lower price. So you're always going to pay full price for your like highest priced kid,
Okay.
although it could be 10% off with the early registration, and then that trickles down to the other kids.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, Stephen loves being a lifeguard at the NAC.
Oh, all right. Email us about that. That's awesome that he likes to do that. I didn't know that he was out there. I should go say hi one of these days. Hey Vita, I saw you unmuted.
Hi, can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share with some of the new parents and maybe the returning parents too, the kind of dedicated coach that you are, and also the kind of dedicated staff that you have and the coaches in your dad. We call him Coach Dad, and Charlene as well. We couldn't. I don't think last year would have happened without her. Coach Ryan as well. So we are. I have 2 kids swimming. I have a 12-year-old and an 8.5-year-old. And last year we were a family, a displaced family, like Kristen mentioned. We swam for another club that couldn't quite figure out whether they were coming back or not. So at the 11th hour, we pretty much crawled over to the NAC and begged to be accepted. We were. Our old club opened up in the 11th hour, and we decided to be loyal to the people that have accepted us. And it was a risk, certainly, because NAC was a very new team, like Kristen mentioned. But I have to say that in the year that we have been with you guys, we have grown so attached, and we've grown to just really appreciate everything that you have done for our kids. Just one little example, and there could be so many, but I don't want to go on forever. But just one little example was that our son showed really great times and was supposedly able to make it into some higher level competitions. And we found out that none of the meets, because of COVID, were US sanctioned. So here's a kid who was so excited to go, all the way within his age group and his capacity and all that, just to find out that he can't because all of the meets and all of the times that he posted were not accepted because none of the meets were US sanctioned. And so Coach Kristen, without really our asking or pleading or doing anything, we're like, okay, so if it's not happening, it's not happening. What can you do? You know, it happens. It's COVID here. So what does Coach Kristen do? She makes the phone calls to her other coaches and friends and colleagues in the sport, the industry, and she's able to find a meet to get us accepted, to get us invited, to get us accepted, and just gets us a meet where he can actually get some of the sanctioned times and ultimately go to a competition that our son wanted to go to. So just a tiny little example showing the hard work, the diligence, the dedication, the perseverance, and those are the qualities that I find that she transports then to her coaching, to her even dealing with this presentation, how detailed it was and how it covered every single nook and cranny of everything we need to know for the rest of the year. It is not often that I think you find a coach like that. And I find as kids grow and maybe listen to parents less and we become less of people of authority and coaches become more of a people of authority, it's important to have people like that on your side. And as a parent, I am really appreciative of that. So that's my point.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting to like almost tear
You
up.
did not know I was going to say that.
On the team info Zoom, but no, thank you so much for the kind words. We're so grateful for all of the families that we have who are so invested and really believe in us and advocate for us. And I'm so excited to, knock on wood, fingers crossed, hopefully have a year that we can really show what we can do and give these kids these opportunities. So excited and looking forward to the year ahead. Right. Can anybody top that? I think we're probably good to wrap up on that.
That was very nice.
So nice.
Did you pay her, Kristen?
I did. Yeah. Yep. It was all bribes. She's actually a plant in the presentation. No, we're so grateful for everybody. Really looking forward to the year ahead. And please reach out to us with any questions. Looking forward to meeting a bunch of you at Evals. I'm hoping we'll plan some social things this year that we didn't do a ton of last year, but really want to make this a really good team. And not necessarily just good at swimming, good, but a good place to be, a good place to learn, a good place to grow. And really looking forward to the year ahead. All right. Well, everybody have a good night. Sorry for taking an extra half hour of your time. We're looking forward to seeing you soon, and go watch the Olympics and have a really fun and safe and healthy rest of the summer. And we're always available if you want to reach out or you want to chat about anything. We're looking forward to a great year. All right. Goodbye, everybody.